And welcome to today's webinar. We've got the wonderful team here from Real Good Honey. Before I introduce them, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land which I'm beaming in from today. I'm currently on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Now, just a little bit of admin on how today's session will run. We are recording the session, so if you do have to jump off, we get it, people are busy. This session will be recorded and we'll send it around afterwards. Feel free to share with your friends if anyone else couldn't make it. There's also a little Q&A box down the bottom. So today's session will start with a presentation from the wonderful team, and we'll then throw over to everyone who's online for any questions. So feel free to, as we're going along, drop those questions in the button down the bottom, and then we'll throw over. So before I go any further, I would love to introduce the team from Real Good Honey. So we've got Jay Curtin, the wonderful CEO of Real Good Honey, who I can't wait for you all to see her passion for this industry and the products and the brand behind Real Good Honey. We've got Dr. Shona Blair, who's the real minds behind a lot of the technical progressions of the products behind the brand. So super excited for you all to hear from her. And we've got Brian Jamison, one of the board directors of Real Good Honey. So I might hand over to the team because you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from the exciting developments and what's going on behind the hood of Real Good Honey. So take it away, Jay.
Oh, thank you, Anna. It was a wonderful intro, and we do have a great team here at Real Good Honey. So thank you to my team for joining us today, and thank you to everybody that has taken time out of their busy schedules to jump onto our webinar today. I know we've had a really good turnout for this one, which is fantastic. So I think we're going to keep the presentation relatively short because what Shona has to talk about is very exciting, and I suspect that we're going to get quite a few questions at the end of it. So thought I would introduce myself and start with just a little bit of a recap on where we've come from. So those, many of you would already know me from social media, but I'm Jay, and the CEO and founder of Australian Honey Ventures. And a lot of people would associate me more so with Real Good Honey, which is Australian Honey Ventures flagship brand. So just a bit of history about our company. This is our third raise, and we are a manufacturing company. And to date, we've done some pretty amazing things. So everyone would have seen our pitch video to see where we started a couple of years ago to where we are now. So look, we are a honey company here in Perth, Western Australia, and we're in a really unique position here in Western Australia because of some of the fantastic honeys that are being produced in this state. So look, we're not the only ones that has access to these exceptional honeys, but we certainly are positioned to be able to thoroughly enjoy a very large supply of that West Australian honey supply. So the chairman of the company is West Australia's largest honey producer, and also the deputy chairman of the Australian honey industry. So in terms of securing supply of our honeys, we're, like I said, positioned very well. To date, the progress that we've made, so we have, over the last 12 months since our last raise, we have successfully entered 4 countries. So we are now selling products in the Middle East. So we are in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, with some very big brand names. So including Holland & Barrett, Boots Pharmacies, and Bin Sina. Just in the UAE alone, our exclusive contract in that region will have us in up to 270 pharmacies just throughout the UAE. Then we've got our deal in Saudi Arabia, which is just relatively new. That should then expand our ability to be in pharmacy to about 700 outlets across that region. And then we've got Kuwait as well, which is a little bit smaller. So We are still very early days in our journey as a honey company, but we've really kicked some goals in comparison to a lot of the other honey companies out there, being the first honey company to get a medicinal honey on shelf next to Manuka. So very, very passionate and very proud that our team has been able to achieve that. So the other big things that we've done last year, we did have a big raise last year. I think we raised just under $2 million, which couldn't have come at a better time for us, because we were landing these contracts with these pharmaceutical retailers, and we needed to up the ante with our processing facility. So that raise largely got funneled into the development of a fully functioning warehouse facility in Wurundjeri in Perth. So we've invested around $1.6 million on getting that warehouse to where it needs to be. Just I suppose a bit of facts financially about where we're sitting. As you can imagine, we're not a SaaS startup. We are a burgeoning manufacturing facility that has required significant investment up front to be able to get our infrastructure in place. So, and here we are now looking to do our next raise to be able to give us that runway to carry us through the next 12 to 18 months, which will be funneled into advertising and marketing and some pilot studies as well. So we've got the warehouse in place. I might actually just go along and touch on some of the things that we've done here. So as I've mentioned, guys, we're in the 4 countries. We're also selling direct to consumer here in Australia. We've only launched a beta trial on that, but existing stats seem to show that there really is a channel worth pursuing direct to consumer, and our gross profit margins are a lot higher in that market. We've acquired 10,000 social media followers since the last raise. Our warehouse, the $1.6 million figure that I gave previously, was including $600,000 worth of inventory sitting in that warehouse ready to be able to pack those large orders. Also, the exciting thing and the reason for the seminar today is to talk about the pilot studies that we are about to start. So look, I hope I've been able to give you a bit of a snapshot around where the company has come from, where we are now. But let me just launch into these pilot studies and why we're in this area. So the number one priority of this company from day one was to ensure that we entered into the medicinal space to value add Australian honey. So we saw a screaming opportunity for our high hydrogen peroxide honeys to be used in therapeutic ways to help with antimicrobial resistance and other ailments out there. So it was always our intention to I suppose locate those lucrative opportunities. We were initially looking at both human and animal, so horses and the like. But just with some use cases that we've been finding over the past 6 months, we have settled on the areas being vaginal health and also tinea. So we will be doing pilot studies throughout 2023, so this year, and those pilot studies, well, one of them at least is likely to run into the next year. So I just want to I wouldn't mind bringing up, well, before I go there, look, I have had a question from people asking, what is our intention with our existing products? So we've entered the functional food products in medicinal jar. I don't have one here. So we've entered the chemists or the pharmacies already from a functional food perspective. We are already on shelf in Woolworths in a non-medicinal way. And those existing markets are very important to us, and we will continue to support our retailers to grow brand awareness and actually trigger recurrent revenue. But we also have a real exciting part of our business, which is growing the portfolio of our honey-based products in the medicinal space to combat some of these global diseases. So that's the exciting area. That's where we see the potential for real growth. and especially in the tinea space, where a lot of research has already been done, the opportunity to get a product to market relatively quickly, which is a good thing for the company, versus the vaginal space where the research is not as progressed. It's showing really good signs, but yeah, we still need to do some work there. But what I wanted to share with everyone is there is a method in our madness. So, sorry, my screen doesn't seem to want to scroll. Anna, oh, here we go. Anna, it's not seeming to want to do what I need it to do. Okay, so I just want to actually go over our strategic positioning as a company, right? If I draw your attention to the bottom of the screen, you will see on the right-hand column, we have a column for honey packers. So prior to the point where we decided to conduct the pilot studies in vaginal health and tinea, if from an acquisition point of view and an exit strategy as a company, if we are just honey in a jar or honey in a sachet, we really are limiting down our potential acquisition opportunities. So you can see on the right-hand side under the honey packer column that you've got your typical large players in that honey space. But by being very strategic, and I mean, our honeys being antifungal and antibacterial, there are a lot of use cases which they could be really important for, but it's actually very, very strategic of us to be going into an antifungal or a fungal space, because our honeys with the high levels of hydrogen peroxide in them have something that Manuka don't. So it helps build a layer of defensibility around our company by penetrating those markets where Manuka cannot play as easily. So if we have a look here, the big players, if we take, for example, Bayer. Now, Bayer are a company that they own the Caniston brand, which is a thrush brand. They also play in athlete's foot, thrush, and bacterial vaginosis. So this little table is just here for everyone to have a look at, to see who the players are in these spaces that we're choosing to innovate, and to show you how by smart innovation in areas that our incumbents such as Manuka or Manuka brands can't play, it's quite strategic for us to be headed in this antifungal side of things. So I might hand over to you, Shona, if that's okay, just to maybe have a talk about what research has been done in the field, and talking about the vaginal space and what's exciting about that, and also what's quite commercially savvy around that tinea space and the demand that exists, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay, and hello, everyone, and thanks for coming along today. I think there is a huge amount of potential here. So I've spent the last 20 plus years as a microbiologist doing research into the medicinal properties of honey. And it's been fantastic and scientifically incredibly interesting. But what's kind of always made me a little bit sad is that it hasn't really been picked up much, and nobody's really run with it and used it to have impact and really make a genuine difference to people suffering from all sorts of things that honey could really help with. So I guess starting with the area where the most work has already been done, and that's talking about tinea. Tinea is actually, it's a fungal infection. It's something called a filamentous fungus, a dermatophyte in particular. It grows on, it can grow anywhere, but tends to grow around the feet or around the groin, sort of moist areas. 70% of the world's population will have tinea at least once in their life, and most people get recurrent infections. There are treatments, but we have issues with those treatments in that they tend not to work terribly well always. They're not sort of universally effective. You often get reoccurrences, and we are starting to see something called antifungal resistance. So that means that the particular set of fungi that are infecting, say, my feet and let's say Jay's feet as well, they are now no longer susceptible to the classic antifungal cream that we can go off and buy at the chemist. The really cool thing about honey is we've done a whole bunch of lab tests testing different types of honey. And as Jay pointed out, we sometimes compare the Manuka type honeys to these, what we call hydrogen peroxide type honeys, which an example of a high hydrogen peroxide is the Jarrah honey from WA, really, really active, really high levels of power against fungi and bacteria that cause infections. What's really cool is that we can kill the fungi that cause the tinea, and we've done that in the lab really, really effectively. And, you're sort of thinking, well, that's great, but I'm not going to put, I don't want a shoe full of honey. But what's really cool about it is you don't have to put pure honey on your feet and then try and put your shoes and socks on. What we can do is make various types of ointments and emulsions that are based on that, and make that into a cream that can be put onto the feet or anywhere else. You might have the jock itch, as it's sometimes called, as well. And what we will be doing in our pilot study is really testing the efficiency of this with real live human patients. So that's a really, really exciting prospect. And I'm feeling really confident that we're going to get some fantastic results there from that pilot study. Then we'd build up to a full-blown clinical trial and move into registration of a medical product that would actually work, that people can buy over the counter, and that we're not going to see resistance developing for. So that's the sort of medium and long-term goal for that one as well.
Shona, can I just ask you a quick question that might be on
sure.
our minds? When it comes to the resistance issue, that is, I think I read somewhere it's touted by the World Health Organization as being one of the leading causes of death by 2050. And there really is nothing in the pipeline in terms of these new innovative products coming. I've had a few people ask me, well, why are these passive pathogens so susceptible to the honey, and what is going to stop them getting resistant to the honey? I don't actually understand that enough to be able to have that conversation with someone else. Maybe you might be able to touch on that for us.
That's a really good question, Jay. And this is something that I wondered about a few years ago when I was tinkering around in the lab, and I thought, well, every time we develop a new antibiotic, now, a year later, but back in the day, 5 to 10 years later, we end up developing resistance, or we see the bugs developing resistance, more to the point. So I thought, well, what if this happens with honey? If we start using it more, the more you use a drug or anything, the more the bugs get used to it and the more they develop resistance. So what happens if we use more honey? Will we get more resistance? So we actually did a bunch of experiments trying to make them resistant to the honey, which we can do. We know how to do that with antibiotics. We do it all the time for various experimental reasons. We couldn't get them. We could easily get them resistant to antibiotics, but not to honey. And the reason for this is honey is a really, really complex process, and its antimicrobial activity, or that's its ability to kill these different germs or pathogens, is based on multiple lines of attack. So if we have a drug compound that we swallow a tablet, that's great, and they can be very effective. And antibiotics are really important drugs, but we've overused and abused them, which is why we have this resistance problem, which is why, as you say, by 2050, that's going to kill more people than anything else in the world if we don't change some of our behaviors and many other things. And pharmaceutical companies have moved away from making more antibiotics because they know after they've spent the billions making them and they've got them on the market, a year later, they'll have resistance. The thing about honey is it's not just one compound. We've got this using again Jarrah as an example. It's got this high levels of hydrogen peroxide activity, so that's attacking it. But on the other side, the osmotic effect, which is basically that high sugar concentration we see in honey, is also having an impact. The bugs don't really like that. It sort of tends to dry them out. Honey is actually quite acidic. You wouldn't necessarily think of that because it's so sweet, but it's actually got quite a low pH. And generally speaking, most pathogens don't really like that low pH. So that tends to kind of shrivel them up a bit as well. And then different honeys, they're different because of the nectar. I mean, I know our beekeepers listening to this will know this, but not everybody else realizes the difference between Jarrah honey and red gum and black butt is about the flowers that the bees have gone to. So they go and get that nectar, they bring it back, they do their business to turn it into the honey. While they're doing that, they will add this enzyme that produces the hydrogen peroxide at different quantities. And they'll also add a whole bunch of other things, and a whole bunch of things will come from the flowers. So they all have different phytochemicals and things in there. So because it's so complex, the bugs are being attacked from all sides at once. So even if they work out how to put a wall up against this particular thing, which is what they normally do for an antibiotic, something's sneaking around the back, so to speak, and getting in that way. So that's really what generates this protectiveness about honey and the unlikelihood of it bugs being able to develop resistance to the honey.
Okay, Shona, so if you were Bayer and you were a leading player in an antifungal space, you wish you were Bayer, right? Who wouldn't wish they were Bayer? If there was something completely natural out there that was effective, that was had a very low chance of developing resistance to these bugs, would that be something of interest to you to explore further?
I think the fact that it's so effective and that it's non-toxic, because I can give you plenty of things that will kill tinea, but they'll also, you know, your foot will drop off, or I'll burn a hole in your skin, or whatever it is. So obviously I'm not going to give you those. I think the effectiveness, as you say, the lack of resistance and the non-toxicity, the worst thing you can do to somebody with a honey ointment is make them a bit sticky. That is literally the word. You can sometimes get some stinging with open wounds, but again, you don't get adverse reactions. And the great thing about honey-based treatments is that they don't interact with other conventional medicines. So if somebody was on antibiotics for something else, or other like heart medications or whatever, it doesn't interact. You have to be very careful. My mum's getting a lot older, and she's on this sort of cocktail of different things for different issues going on, and you have to start being really careful about balancing different drugs and interactions. The fantastic thing about honey, you're not going to hurt anybody with it. You're going to, if you use the right honey, and that's really, really important, because some honeys are whatever, they're just something to put on your toast, but some honeys are really much more active. So you use the right honey and it's going to work. We need to muck around, we need to get the formulations right, and you know, there's a little bit of tinkering to be done, so to speak. But if I had the money to invent my own honey company, I would have done it a long time ago, and I'd be a bazillionaire.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. Sorry, Shona, I jumped in and I took you off on a different trajectory. What about the vaginal space? It's been a bit of a hot topic, and it might be worthwhile. We haven't had a chat for a couple of days, but there is a real flurry of interest out there from women at the moment around our honey products, and the massive big cries for help from women dealing with recurrent infections. We know thrush. We know that you were involved in some science back in 2006 that proved there were 3 species of candida that the Jarrah honey was very effective against. So these ladies are crying for help, looking for solutions to recurrent infections that they just can't seem to shake. And so maybe you could touch on that space a little bit. Also, the fact that there's a lot more unknowns in that space, but also the opportunity that exists there, given it is extremely unsaturated and, you know, quite exciting.
So as you say, I mean, in general, women's health has been grossly neglected in the research space. So, you know, we'll just put that out there, and it's true. And there aren't many products anyway for women. And so there are, you know, the vaginal space is incredibly complex from a microbiology perspective. And thrush is caused by a yeast, which is another type of fungi. It gets really, I mean, I don't want to get too nerdy about it all, but tinea is a type of fungi and thrush is another type of fungi. It doesn't really matter. The point is you can get overgrowth, you get an imbalance. So the vagina is it's like the gut. We all know now that, you know, yogurts and prebiotics and probiotics, complexities of the population make a healthy gut. It's the same for the vaginal space. So if that balance is tipped off, and it could be tipped off because of needing to be on antibiotics or other medications, at a point in the cycle, lifestyle, stress, smoking, normal life that you can't control for, then you can get an imbalance and you can get an overgrowth of something that normally, if it's there a little bit, it doesn't matter, but then you get too much of it. So if you get too much candida, you can get thrush. If you get too much of different types of bacterial things, certain types of them, then you can get BV, bacterial vaginosis. We know that honey, we don't know. We suspect that honey will be effective against a lot of the bacteria that are involved in BV. And we do know that in the lab, honey is effective against the candida that causes thrush. So what's really exciting is we're developing some pilot studies looking at, first of all, we sort of want to make a little bit like an artificial ecosystem that's like a vaginal ecosystem, testing some of our different really active honeys from over there in WA, seeing how they impact that balance. We've done some preliminary work on the same type of thing, but looking at guts, and we get a positive impact on the balance, which is fantastic. So first of all, looking at can we get the numbers of those pathogens down and keeping that nice healthy balance in play? And then in the long run looking at, or sorry, not in the long run, and then in the next stage is looking at developing, again, how would you practically apply honey in that particular environment, making some suppositories, getting the right sort of formulations going. And then what will that do? How will that impact the actual vaginal flora of different women in different stages? We'll start off, we'll do a pilot, we'll include some women with healthy, no issues, and also include some women probably with something like bacterial vaginosis, and see what we can do to help. Because as you say, it's a space that's grossly been neglected in research, and there isn't much that you can do in that space at the moment.
Yeah, look, does it surprise you at all, Shona, that we've been inundated with women so frustrated about this particular issue? Let's take BV, for example, an embarrassing issue they don't want to talk to anyone about, not even their closest friends, because they are so embarrassed. But just even the sheer concept of this 2023 pilot study around female health and really trying to help women, I suppose, give them their dignity back. Like, does it surprise you at all that I am constantly fielding questions from these ladies in the last couple of weeks since we've gone live on this this offer? Yeah,
it doesn't, because as you say, there's a sort of a traditional kind of avoid, oh, better not talk about it, it's a bit rude, whatever. Then there's also a problem with BV with odour for a lot of women, and then they find that embarrassing, which they shouldn't, but you know, I completely understand why they do. And then because you don't see ads for it, you don't see people talking about it on telly, you don't see people talking about it in soapies and in movies. Like, people might talk about other things now, but they don't tend to talk about that still. So there's this, it's happening to, you know, up to 40% of women in certain stages of their lives. For example, again, going back to the BV, that will happen, you know, when women are from starting of puberty to menopause. You know, it can, not most. Don't quote the stats at me because I can't remember the exact paper details now, but a lot of women will be going through this. And there's not really, oh, you could try this, you could do that, you might need antibiotics, but there's no real understanding of what to do in this really complex environment. And there hasn't been that much research done on it, even how we measure it and how we define it and how we decide that you have that and I have this, you know, how do we, what's the word? I've lost the word. Doctor says you have X, but anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. So there is a massive hole here, and obviously, from a company perspective, it's a massive opportunity.
Yeah, look, going back to the start of this call where I gave a little bit of an update on the opportunities, if I just scroll back up to this screen after hearing what Shona had to say, it probably makes a little bit more sense. When we look at the potential strategic positioning of this company, we always started as a medicinal company. Our number one goal was to return more per kilo to beekeepers from, you know, for the fruits of their labor. And the way that we would do that would be positioning ourselves in that therapeutic space to be able to value add the honey. And the last 18 months really has been trying to get some revenue in, hit our shelves as a functional food, and then also try and land on where is that strategic place in medicine for us to really grab a hold of and really move into. And there has been a lot of strategy going into the decisions for us to land in the space of tinea and the vaginal space. And I just want to reiterate one more time, now that we've heard from Shona, the biggest thing that is front of mind for me driving this company is to make sure that we put a moat around our castle. And then if we can, let's put an electric fence around that moat, protecting our castle to, so far as reasonably practicable, protecting us from any competitors to come in and cut our grass. So it was just a natural no-brainer for us to say, what do we have that Manuka doesn't have? And the hydrogen peroxide component, which is naturally occurring, is existent in our honeys here, and it is not existent in Manuka. And it is the hydrogen peroxide, just like the stuff that your mum would have put on your knee as a kid when you had an infected scab. Our honeys produce that naturally at super high levels, which is what makes them antifungal. Now, Manuka doesn't have antifungal. So we can go and innovate in the acne space. for example, but that is largely a bacterial space. So if we go in there and we create real opportunity in acne, then that is a space that someone with deeper pockets could come in and potentially penetrate, because their product is also antibacterial. So by hanging out in the areas that are antifungal, that affect a huge cohort of our population, that is very smart for us, because it's not a place that Manuka are going to be able to nuzzle in on. And probably very few people will be able to nuzzle in on this space, because from my conversations with Shona in the past is the phenol equivalent percentages found in our honey over here are unlike anything that she's ever been told about or is aware of in the world. So it's a real space. When we look at the vaginal space, the femtech space, it is a cohort of up to 4 billion people that, and 3/4 of them are going to have an issue vaginally in that time. And you just do the facts. There's no one researching it. It's underserved. It is underfunded, and there is such a demand. And to give you an idea of our sales are only slow now because, or minimal, because we're not advertising, because we need to do this raise. But our inquiry has picked up, I would have to say, 700 or 800% in the last 2 weeks since going live on these pilot studies, from demand from women needing help. So that is a huge signal in the market of just how much women need help in these areas. And so strategically, for us to do these studies and bring out a tinea cream that actually works, that affects, like Shona said, I think Shona, 70% of people will have tinea in their life. 1 in 4 people will have it at any time, at the same time. To bring out a cream that is so easily for Shona to be able to tinker with and create and get to market very quickly, get onto shelf, it could be very exciting for this company. And then the big dark horse, and having that vaginal stuff as well in the background, to start doing some stuff there. And hopefully, look, Shona hasn't touched on it, but we've also had females voluntarily using these honeys in their pure form, and reporting some extremely exciting things around resolve of UTIs, which is E. coli in the urethra. We've got women using it for bacterial vaginosis, and after 1 treatment, it is gone. So guys, there's some really exciting stuff here that we're playing in a space. We're innovating to a blue ocean where people aren't. So maybe Brian, from a male's perspective, we asked Brian to come on today just to speak from a director's point of view, and from a male's perspective. We do know that there is a little bit of stigma in this category, and some people might feel a little bit uncomfortable, even just trying to digest what we're talking about here. So I thought for a bit of balance, it'd be great to bring Brian on, and Brian might be able to tell you his view on why we're going the way that we're going.
Hello, everyone, to start with. I'm actually really excited. I think between what Shona and Jay have said today is critically important. Like there's a real opportunity for a very much more natural approach to managing this. There's a very real opportunity to support some vulnerability in the community. So it's the same thing. If a guy gets jock itch, or you end up with a rash, or you end up with a sore foot, you've got to go and see a doctor. It's not nice. For women, it's probably a little bit more sensitive because of the odor that can happen as well. But if this becomes a possibility where you don't have to go and see a doctor, there's an option on a shelf, there's a readily available, I would say, low stress environment that you can go to. Because again, when it comes to female health, seeing a male doctor is not always the best option, and there's a lot of stigma around that as well. I mean, my wife struggles with that, so she will go to extreme lengths to avoid seeing a male doctor, and push an appointment out by weeks. So and this is a problem for everybody. I mean, if we look at, as what Shona was saying, the resistance currently occurring within, I'd say, on a global scale, the opportunity to start removing that is something for the next generation. So we're looking at not just focusing on trying to solve issues around what we're doing right now, which is fantastic, but we're looking for a future generation. So I want my son to grow up in an environment where he can have a cure to something, and it's not going to be rejected. So maybe it's antibiotics. If we reduce the level of antibiotics, we can use honey in some cases. then we reduce the chances of having the ability of those antibiotics becoming ineffective. So everything we can do to tone down and change the way we approach some of these problems at the moment, I think is a good option. And again, like women's health, support for my partner, support for other people's, families, and the next generation is critical. Where do we want to leave this? And I think that's probably the key thing that got me excited about it, which was there's a chance to make a change. I love honey. I love to eat honey, but this is much more important than eating honey. And I think the key thing here is that change starts with a desire to do something different. And then the pressure that comes with that desire from yourself is one thing. But when you get a collective together and you can suddenly start to say, wow, I can see a change. If we do the pilot, we see positive results. People get more excited. You get more people behind it. They start driving that forward. That forward momentum creates pressure. That pressure creates change. That change eventually moves the way that we engage in society. And I think that's the coolest thing, is we're not just talking about honey, we're talking about a different way of approaching a problem, and a very much more natural way. So, and I think for me, it's a key thing, and it's well worth, I think, the time and the effort and the patience, because this is not a fast thing either, is it, Shona? No, I mean, anything that's with value is going to take some time. And I think the passion that Jay brings to the company and the knowledge and capability that Stephen has, and I mean, the chairman is hooked up within the bee industry, which is an amazing step up. If you look at competitive analysis, there's a very strong driver for having Stephen in the company. There's a very strong driver for having Shona around. Their collective abilities, the other advisory components of the board, and the fact that not many other, I would say, honey companies are even looking at doing this. And it's probably too new on a pharmaceutical, I would say, pharmaceutical remit. But if there's a success, then that gets attention. And I think that's the key thing that we need to work towards.
Yeah. Anna, how much time do we have?
We've got about questions. Yes, we've got a few questions. We've got about 20 minutes left. We can go over time. As I mentioned, everyone, if you do need to duck off and you missed the last little section, you'll absolutely be able to catch back up. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you as well for anyone who's popped in a question. Please feel free to drop in a few more. As I mentioned, we'll try to get to them all. I guess it's been incredible to hear from my perspective, and Birchal, we are so stoked to see the growth of the business. We've been on the journey for a few years now. So I particularly love as well, Jay, when you first were introducing the company to me, particularly what stood out was you launched your direct to consumer channel, and this just opened your world up of all of the opportunities and potential uses for this product. So I think that connection as well that you have with your consumer is really important, and it's absolutely credit to you to be able to jump on that and go, what can we do with this? So I guess I'll just kick us off with a really quick question. Jay, I know you've invested a lot into your production capacity since your last round. How do you really see that setting yourself up in terms of your pipeline development, your current products? Obviously, you've just exported. Could you just talk us a little bit about the strategy you have there as well?
Yeah, so it was really important to us to not go at this with a broad brush. So being a startup, we had to be as savvy as possible to make our advertising and marketing budget go as far as possible. So making sure that we honed in on a particular region was sensible, a region that spoke the same language, might be separate countries, but had same cultural beliefs, so that our core messaging, we just got more mileage out of our campaign. So an obvious choice to us, we initially started in China, and unfortunately we launched as a company right at the time that the trade wars happened. So we had to pivot. So we pivoted to the Middle East. We created, obviously the brand for China was not appropriate for the Middle East. They hated it. Australians hated it too. So we created Real Good Honey and launched there. We attracted the attention of some very big pharmacy brands, firstly in the UAE, and it then spiraled from there. So we ended up, we've launched now into the 4 countries, and they are under a wholesale distribution model. So we sell them really cheap. So, you know, to give you an idea, we sell our honeys at around $22 a jar. And that is at a very, very cheap wholesale price. That particular jar sells in pharmacy in, let's say, Holland and Barrett for $160 Australian, whatever their currency is over there. So they're making a massive markup on the product over there. But, you know, I suppose we looked at this and thought, oh, that could be us. We could be getting a greater share of that, you know, that bigger GP. But who are we fooling? We aren't Manuka. So we've got a new style of honey, a hydrogen peroxide honey. We also are a new brand that no one had ever heard of. What is the likelihood that we're going to be able to tackle these markets D2C when we can't even speak their language? So it was really, it's a strategic move for us to capitalize on that wholesale opportunity. So we have exclusive contracts in place in those 4 countries, which means we can't sell to anyone else or go direct to consumer in those areas. And though they range, they're in place anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So our plan for the next 12 months is, I know people say, have you thought about going to Europe? Have you thought about going there? But what they don't understand is when you want to tackle another country, that is a whole nother marketing campaign. That is a whole nother advertising budget. And it's a whole nother set of messaging for a new type of audience. So for us, our main focus in 2023 for our existing products is to continue to support our retailers in those 4 countries through contributing a bit of extra spend to growing brand awareness to help drive their customers to their store. So we have a Middle East Arabic social channels set up. So we are populating them just to be able to drive awareness on the products to get them in the store. So nothing too great, Anna, for like nothing too lavish out there. It's really just saying, let's double down on where we already are and try and focus on getting those repeat orders, because the first order of these companies is only 4,000 jars and they won't reorder again until those 4,000 jars are gone. And compared to now, so that it might take a long time to sell 4,000 jars because their consumers have never heard of it. But 18 months from now, that will be a very different story when they have got that brand loyalty there. So it's just doing what we can to support them. And then we have our direct to consumer channels, which is, I know that we're not turning over a lot of sales, but what we are turning over is red hot, considering it is completely organic traffic that is coming. And I don't know, people say to me, whatever you think is going to happen, the opposite will always happen. So always plan for the opposite. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be having conversations with women and men saying that based on the own research that they were doing, and some of these people are finding Shona's research as well, they're putting 2 and 2 together. They're that desperate and fed up. I'm getting reports back of women and men saying that they have, you know, done X, Y, and Z with their honeys and they have had, you know, a complete resolve of whatever ailment. We're talking men with fissures in their rectum. We're talking women with thrush. We're talking women with UTIs. We're talking women with streptococcal infections in their throat. We're talking candida infections in the mouth. And it was just this like moment. And I was like, oh my goodness, we look at all this stuff that we're just selling honey in a jar as functional food. And our consumers are coming back saying this is what it's doing for us. So that has sort of then pivoted to these strategic discussions with Shona saying, okay, Shona, it's about time now we stop marketing this as antifungal and antibacterial. Let's drill down and what does that actually mean for the human cohort? And so then some strategic discussions, and here we are, pilot studies into really 2 hot spaces.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. We've got a question here for Dr. Blair. Just a very quick one on, is, from their understanding, is honey a no-no for people who are required to follow a FODMAP diet to improve gut health?
So I was looking at that question. It's like all of good science and honey science in particular, it's a complicated area. We have done some preliminary research looking at Australian honeys and their impact on the gut and gut health and this balance of good bugs and bad bugs and complexities of population in general. The more complex your gut population, the better. What we found is that eating honey, a tablespoon a day, tends to push you in a good direction. You get more of the good guys, fewer of the bad guys. And another cool thing is that some of the guys that are in there, and the girls, they're ungendered, actually start producing substances that protect you from things like colon cancer. So the more of them, the more complicated, the more kind of happy they are making all their little byproducts, the better. And honey seems to push you in that direction. Really, really interesting preliminary research being done there, and some more going on now in the background as well. The whole FODMAP thing, I don't know enough about. I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on. It depends if people are on that because they're very sensitive to, there might be some salicylates or all sorts of different things. It depends why the people are on that and what's going on. Honey is a funny thing. It often gets branded unfairly because it is high in sugar. So, for example, you have the star ratings in supermarkets. They'll often get really low stars, but it's really complex mixture of sugars, and some of the sugars in there are really interesting, like oligosaccharides, which we don't absorb, but the bugs down in our gut do, and that's what contributes to this kind of shift towards a healthy gut. It's not a blanket substance, and it's so complicated that it's just easy to put in the, just put it over their basket, which I think is why things get labelled incorrectly as an unhealthy substance. I mean, you don't want to eat a kilo of it a day. That would not be good for you. But a tablespoon a day usually is. But I wouldn't advise someone directly if they were on a special diet for a particular reason. I'd invite, I'd say talk to your clinician about it and maybe try out a small amount and see what happens. But I eat a tablespoon a day.
Sorry, so the whole thing with FODMAP, I'm not an expert, but a close friend has gone through the process, is elimination of foods that cause issues within the bowel.
Upset. And
so honey contains fructose. Fructose can cause an issue in the bowel. So it's not saying that you can't eat honey. It's saying that if you look at what Monash produced and you look at the FODMAP process, then you need to eliminate each one of those categories and go from a high usage option down to a low usage option, or terminate them from your diet totally to work out where that issue actually sits. Once you identify where that issue sits, then you can look at the rest of the FODMAP groupings and you can say, well, I can reintroduce this one and I'm fine. There's no issue. I can reintroduce that one and I'm fine. What a lot of people do, though, is they just look at the anagram, they do a quick Google and they go, I can't eat 95 things.
Everything. Yeah, and you couldn't eat. It's very unhealthy to be on a complete lockdown and never reintroduce good foods.
Yeah. So I think it's a good question, but it's a complex one because it's not as simple as no, you can't. So there are some situations for people on a FODMAP diet where fructose is fine, but something else is not, and I think that's probably worth noting.
I think that's a great question to help, I guess, underpin where your customers might be coming from and if some of them might be FODMAP affected. So thank you for that question, and thank you so much for that explanation. We've got a very specific question on, does the company have a plan regarding the possible outbreak of the varroa mite in Western Australia, in brackets, to secure a continuous flow of raw product?
I could probably talk to this, and probably so could Shona. So Shona is very well positioned within the Australian honey industry. Everyone wants a piece of Shona. She's hot property these days. And I probably should have mentioned also that Shona is the chairman of Congress for the whole bee industry. So we are talking with honey royalty here, not just a microbiologist. But I'm happy to have a quick chat about that. So Stephen Fuster is the chairman of ARBIC, which is the Australian Honeybee Industry Council. And also I can't even remember his role, Shona, with the whole varroa outbreak. So Shona and Stephen have been heavily involved in the outbreak on the East Coast. So for those of you, forgive if I say this wrong, if we've got any beekeepers on here, the outbreak actually is isolated. It's over in New South Wales, and it is a bug. It is a bug that affects the health of your hive, and your honey production in that hive will be significantly reduced because the health of your hive, the bug, attaches onto it. Now, the outbreak was contained, or is contained, over on the East Coast. And let's say, so there's lots of protocol in place, but let's say that that outbreak was to then go to Victoria, then make its way to South Australia, and then make its way to Western Australia. It's, I've spoken to Stephen about this, and he says reasonably, he said it'd be 10 years away. If it wasn't contained or was still getting out, we would still be looking at, potentially 10 years before it would even get to Western Australia. Now, the sad thing for it's not just New South Wales, it's just the sad facts for any state who was going to get it first is the state to get it first is not prepared for the invasion. So they don't have all of the special mats in place. They don't even have biosecurity approval to be able to have these mats in their hives. These mats all have expiry dates, so you couldn't even have them in stock and the mats are things that kill these bugs, I think, Shona. So the poor New South Wales community really were on the back foot. They had to try to work to contain it, destroy hives, put critical zones in place. They've been successful at containing it. I think they're doing relatively okay with it now. There are no signs of it in any other states. Plus, every state now has the luxury of getting ready for when that comes. So let's say that, let's talk about myself and Stephen. So with his hives, at the moment that he receives notification that there is an invasion, he'd be ready to go with the mats in his hive. So the impact to his business is going to be extremely insignificant. It would be more of a financial impact getting those hives ready for the invasion. So, 10 years away from it over here in Western Australia. And when it does come, we don't think the impact will be great. Shona, have I worded that okay?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jay. We're both using the word bugs, which I shouldn't do, actually. I'm talking about microorganisms. You're talking about a little tiny bug that we can actually see that gets onto the baby bees, sucks their blood, and makes them susceptible to infections, and that then you end up killing your hive if you don't look after it with these mats that you're talking about. But, I mean, at the moment in WA, there are lots of bee diseases. Varroa isn't the only one, but most of the other ones we're used to, we can control, not a big issue, more or less. I mean, challenging for some beekeepers. But there's already, before Varroa came, such strict biosecurity between WA and the rest of the country in terms of a lot of food and other pests as well, that you can't anyway take honey that way. You're not allowed to. So the chance of it being introduced is incredibly low. And as you say, Jay, they're already over there on the front foot, ready to go if it does come in, and people are hyper vigilant about it now. So I don't really see it as a problem at all that's likely to impact your supply in any time in the near future.
Yeah, great.
Awesome, thank you. We've had a question as well, more focused on the marketing, I guess, of this new range. And obviously you're quite at the forefront of the use case of honey in all of these different topical applications. How do you plan on making women aware of this product? You've obviously mentioned as well, you've had quite a lot of organic traffic to your website, to your direct-to-consumer channels, and perhaps you could tie this into any use of funds as well from a raise.
Yeah, look, it's been a bit of a tricky one for us. Okay, so here we were, we knew that we had a medicinal product. We've thrown it in a jar. We've put it in beautiful packaging. We've captured the attention of the pharmacies, and fast forward 2 years, here we are sitting on the shelf right next to Manuka going, ha, look at us, we've made it. And we're just like the others, right? So what we know is that from a marketing perspective, we've been saying these honeys are antifungal and antibacterial, but what we can't say is that they have an antibacterial and antifungal effect as soon as you eat them. Right. So under the brand of Real Good Honey, we could claim the fact that they were antibacterial and antifungal purely because, well, they are if you put them on your skin. They are if you gargle them. So we had that broad message that these honeys are antibacterial and antifungal, thanks to a lot of the different use cases that people are using. Anyway, but that is, we thought, we have to have that because all of our competitors are also in a jar. And I think to a large extent, consumers out there go, well, if it's good for my skin and it's good for my throat, well, it's got to be good for the gut. So you can't beat them, join them. So that was really important for us to get honey in a jar on the shelf, because if we're not there, people are going to say why you're not there. So we did that. And then opening up this direct-to-consumer channel has been extremely interesting and very valuable for us, because what we've learned is that by going direct to consumers, because we now have an engaged consumer audience, like they're really engaged with the brands, what we've realized is that by going direct to consumer, we can control the narrative far better than what our retailers can. So the effort and the personalization with our brand has, obviously really resonated with these people. So we're selling this honey, and then people are doing their own research because, Google is amazing. Then these people start buying these honey. We now get this problem where, oh my gosh, Stephen, Shona, we've got women and men buying these honeys, and I've got Shona going, oh my God, this is happening too fast. We need to do this and we need to do that. And what is actually happening is these people, whether or not we say anything, these people are using these honeys as a natural way to be able to treat all these ailments. So, and from a commercial point of view, it's a real opportunity for us to look at, okay? We would be mad if we go, we're turning a blind eye to everything that our consumers are telling us. So we've opened our eyes wide up and said, right, let's go down this path. But the vaginal space has really taken off, and to the point it could damage our brand. So we've got a massive risk here. If we continue to brand honey for the vagina, let's say that we keep spruiking this 2023 pilot study for vaginal health, women are getting excited because they are so freaking desperate and will pay whatever to get their vaginas healthy again. If they go and get a bottle of real good honey, squeezy honey, table honey off the shelf at Woolworths and inject that into their vagina, that will be very bad PR, would you think, Shona? Because they're literally just putting a sugar in their vagina. It's not a hydrogen. Yeah, see, there we go, no go. So we had an issue going, right, we got the issue of perception, and I'll give you an example. If I had I'll use me as an example. So if I had a jar of honey and I had that in my bathroom cupboard, and I was using that jar of honey vaginally, and I was taking all the precautions to clean my implements, my syringes, all that kind of stuff, and that not one single bug got into that jar, if Stephen ran out of honey, which we would never run out of honey, right, in our house, but let's say that he did, if he ran out of honey and said, oh, I've got no honey left, I said, well, hang on a sec, I'll go and grab my honey from my bathroom cupboard and you can put that on your cereal. Suddenly it creates this really yucky perception in the mind that, ew, I don't want your vagina honey on my cornflakes, that's gross. So what we've realized is we really need to be careful around the messaging of where we're going and this particular brand. And we don't want to confuse the message between table honey, hydrogen peroxide honeys, vagina honey. So what we're actually doing, it's only recently been announced in the last week, is we are carving off a brand for female health. Well, it's probably not going to be female health. It'll be probably sexual health, because it'll encompass, rectal applications potentially down the track, because there's males as well that are using this for, their own reasons. But we just felt that it is important to have a particular brand that is pulled away from Real Good Honey in case there is any bad news on the brand, and a place where we can create a really safe, encouraging and accepting brand to belong to. So, imagine pastel colors, I don't know, let's call it Cleopatra or Vivian or whatever, let's give it a girl name, or, just a different sounding name. And you go socially, and it's a place where women can go to connect and actually understand that they are normal, everything's okay. And we start talking about our pilot studies, our findings along the way, and actually start to really get that engaged audience and consumer base happening before we've even launched a pessary product. So marketing is really important there. We are still a long way off. To whoever asked that question, no one's asked the question about exit yet, but let's say that we have success with the pilot studies, which we're hopefully going to have. We stand on the roof and yell that from the rooftop saying, hey guys, look, we've got the information here that proves that these honeys, in pessary form will be great to treat thrush or BB, whatever. We get the attention of a biofarm company that wants to come in and buy us out. for those particular products, there is a chance that we may never ever get to having to brand our own product if a pharmaceutical company comes in and sees us as a red hot acquisition target. And once again, that was a lot of strategy on the board's part to make sure that we're headed into areas where people are looking to acquire people. So yeah, and we've obviously got Nick Cummins. That's created a little bit of hype in the market, being a male, and the talk about vaginas and thrush and so forth. So part of this new branding will actually look to bring on a female influencer to really drive the conversation around vaginal health. So that's all in the future. The company can't afford to go and engage another influencer to be associated with something that we're not really selling products for yet. So yeah, so hopefully I've answered that.
Thanks, Jay. We've had a few questions just tying into the testing and timeline of sort of product launch. So we've got, is AHV already testing formulations containing hydrogen peroxide honey for the fungal infections? I think we've kind of covered that, Dr. Shona Joy, before. Shona Blair, sorry.
And so I've been scanning the questions too. So the quick answer to a few of them is yes, it's the honeys that Jay has are high hydrogen peroxide honeys. Lab work has shown so far that in general, hydrogen peroxide honeys are more effective against fungi than Manuka type honeys. And these are the honeys that Jay's working with. And we have to tinker with the formulations and do a bit more lab work, but certainly for something like the tinea cream, we'll be ready to go really quickly to get into this pilot study stage and then down the track to registration. I hope that answered a whole bunch of them at once.
Can you give them an idea, Shona, like how quickly? Because I know how confident you are because we have conversations. These scientists know things that we don't. And this is one that Shona will hang her hat on, that we have got a red hot opportunity and it's not going to take that long. But Shona, can you potentially talk about, that side of it compared to, say, vaginal?
Yep. So the tinea side is, this is something, if I had money to invest, but being a poor scientist, I don't, I would bet every last dollar I had on the tinea work going. I mean, you never know with science, there's always little bumps and there's always complications with formulations and a bit of tinkering, but I'd eat my hat if this doesn't work and work reasonably quickly. And I'm going to, and in science land, a year is a very short period of time to get the pilot study done. So this will have the formulation that works, have it acceptable to people. We'll get people enrolled in the trial. We'll get a dermatologist or an appropriate clinician on board, reach out to people, say, come and use our honey, let us measure before and afterwards, all that type of thing. It takes a while to get going, but I would honestly be gobsmacked if in a year's time we didn't have some insanely exciting results and some real interest in this space. And financial interest is what I'm talking about here specifically.
What do you mean financial interest?
As in people going, oh my God, there's billions of dollars potential here because 70% of the world's population has tinea or has had tinea or will have tinea. At any point in time, as you said, Jay, 30 to 40% of people. So on this call, at least a third of us, at least 10 people on this call have tinea. Some of them, they don't know. Some of them it's a bit irritating. Some of it's probably god awful and they've had it on and off for years. Any of those people, I would be gobsmacked if we get the formulation right, if this honey our honey cream wouldn't work against the tinea that they have. And I think about that market, it is massive and it's an over-the-counter thing. Getting the registration, that will be a process. TGA registration takes a while. But again, it's non-toxic, it's safe, all those things. There's all this lab work already done. We do the pilot study and then build it up to a slightly bigger clinical trial perhaps afterwards. I can't see any no-go places in this. I could see this going, there's a step process that we have to go through, but I can't see it not succeeding.
And now let's talk about the dark horse being the vaginal space. If we were to have success in that space, what are we looking at as a comparison in time to get something to market? Because we know, Shona, we may not even be able to get the honey to talk to the substance that is needed to go into it to make a pessary, right? It may not be able to form into a pessary. It may be an applicator or something that, needs to be used down the track. But there's so many hoops to jump through there first. But in a comparison, how far away, if it was to be a successful trial, how far away to potentially get something to market for vaginal versus tinea?
To get something to market, longer, because it's the basic science end that we haven't done any of yet, whereas the tinea, we've already done the basic science end and we've seen the great results. Also, the skin microbiome, which is, let's say we're talking about somebody's athlete's foot, they have other bugs on there as well. So that's one thing you want to make sure, again, if you put any medication on there, that you're not messing up that balance and causing some side effect that you don't want to see, which is why I'm really confident that's not going to happen with the tinea cream. But because the vaginal space it's a much more complex environment, there are so many more bugs there, we're going to have to tinker more. So as you say, if we make a suppository, if we use an applicator, that part, actually, that technical part, that sort of physical, mechanical part, relatively easy. Take a bit of tinkering, but I'd be very surprised if we couldn't get multiple applications going on there, or multiple avenues. However, it's the science. And maybe for some women, it's going to be a great solution, and for other women, it isn't, for some other reason that we don't know yet, because it's such a complex environment and there's so little work already done. So that's going to take longer. I would hate to, this is the other one I can be pretty darn confident about. This one, I can't give you any reasonable numbers other than a few years. But we can certainly, if we do it stepwise, which is why I wouldn't jump to the end for this one. Tinea, I'd pretty much jump to start formulating it. And let's get it. We need to get the registration going in the middle, but I'd say let's just start formulating it now, because we can get it out there. We know it's going to work. In the vaginal space, we need to do some of this preliminary research, and then we'll find out, and hopefully that'll work great. And we have these microcosms, which is like a lab vagina, that in a test tube, so to speak, that we can test and tinker with the honeys, what will happen, positive, negative. Some people maybe will see the candidate will get better. Maybe some people, the candidate will get, we don't know. And that's what, I'm much less confident that I can give you a definitive answer on. But,
yeah.
but well worth pursuing, and we'll go one step at a time, so we don't waste our money by jumping to the end and it doesn't work. Let's go one step at a time. And we might find incidental things along the way that are like, oh, we didn't think of it for that. It works better for that than it does for that. We don't know what's going to happen in that space with the same confidence.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Blair. We've got a few questions that I might just jump in and answer as well. So we've got a question around what valuation are we looking at for the raise, and also about what will the use of funds be more specifically. So we've covered in general quite a bit about the use of funds. What I will just add is a little bit about crowdsource funding and the phase of the campaign that we're at the moment. So we're currently in the expression of interest phase, which is where we are really going to market with the offer and gauging interest. So the terms of the offer are not currently set. I would encourage you all to, if you've not already, express interest in the campaign, because you will gain first access to the private period when all of the terms of the offer will be made available. And use of funds, all financial activity, financial reports for the last sort of 12 and relevant periods as well will all be outlined in this offer document. So I strongly encourage you to jump online, express interest if you haven't already, gain priority access to that period. Often offers do sell out in that private period, so it's absolutely in your best interest to get in early to secure your spot as a shareholder in the company. So if you have any more specific questions about valuation and things like that, Jay is absolutely available for conversations. Just in the interest of time, I think they're probably going to be much more valuable conversations for you to have one-on-one. So we'll be giving a report of all of these questions and who's asked them to Jay as well. So I'm sure she'll reach out and have a really robust conversation with you there. So thank you so much for those questions. We've had a few more questions, which hopefully we'll be able to touch on, and it's more related to, I guess, international expansion. And I know you've touched on, Jay, that you decided not to proceed with a strategy of China with your current product range. Would this be something you'd be looking at revisiting? Obviously, if you're also looking at creating an entirely new brand for this sort of new direction in the NPD pipeline. And also we've had a question about India, which has traditionally used honey topically for a long time. Does AHV have any plans for that market as well?
Yeah, look, these are the questions that I was alluding to earlier, and I get them all the time, and I really do try and give personalized responses to each of them without offending people. But it is a case of money and time and strategy. So we are we've got so much opportunity here, but we are so cash poor. We are a cash strapped startup that has just managed to somehow build a $1.6 million fit out in a warehouse. We have landed all of these projects, but we don't have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars there to market. So if someone said to me there was a way to click my fingers and just open up another 10 markets overnight, I would not say no to that. I'd be like, yeah, like come. But the thing is, when you want to start a new market, one, I've got an existing shareholder says, why don't you try Korea? I'm like, well, that's a dance I've got to do for 12 months. I've got to find either a salesperson or a broker, or I've got to do it myself. And you're sitting there dancing with these guys for 12 months, hoping that they make an order, and then finally they do. So what I've learned from obviously failing and making bad decisions is work on your product, get your product looking amazing, establish yourself as a credible brand going places in your own country first, which is why now we're turning a focus to Australia, because how can we say to these other countries, we are so successful, we've got this amazing product, if our own country doesn't love us and recognize that too. So becoming an amazing brand in your own country is really important, especially for someone like China. We did try China before, and it was really difficult for us trying to establish our brand over there. When they searched for us, they couldn't find us in any stores, because in Australia, no one really wants medicinal honey because it's too expensive and they don't really understand the value of it. So, it's kind of, you're set up for failure, because these Asian markets, they want to import these really successful Western brands, but you've got to be able to prove that you're successful. And so the main focus for us now is just keeping cost in mind is, one, we need to establish ourselves prominently here in Australia as a medicinal brand. We need to also not turn off, but we also need to understand that table honey market where we're in Woolies, that is fun, it's hilarious. We've got a premium table honey product, but that is not going to make us rich. That is a low value consumption domestic market, and but it gives us brand exposure. And that is how we got. And if it wasn't for being in Australia under the table honey brand, we wouldn't have got these contracts in the eastern states, because we couldn't confirm, we couldn't prove that we were a success in our own country. They kind of didn't care that it was a table honey, because they didn't really understand the difference. They just went, oh, they're in Woolworths, so they must be good, we'll sign the contract. India, I've often looked at that, but to be honest, I don't really have the contacts in India, and it's really hard enough trying to be in 4 countries in the Middle East and dealing with Arabic and all the different dialects of Arabic and trying to navigate all of the cultural sensitivity issues. Like, we couldn't even talk about jock itch there, because not only the public, our designers over there didn't even want to design anything about jock itch, because they think it was just you can't go there. So it is, every market, whilst it could present an opportunity, high net worth, socioeconomic, regions, it's just so much work to get there. And we're just not financial enough as a company to be opening all these doors. Maybe that will change one day, but to give you an idea, if we wanted to enter into Europe, I'd say, okay, let's go to Europe because they speak our language. Shona spent a lot of time over in London and can confirm the crazy prices those guys over there pay for Manuka. It is ridiculous. So if we said, right, we're going to enter Europe, it would be a case. The postage is insane. You are not going to be able to survive as a business by doing postage to Europe. It would mean go over there, set up a team. Then you need probably a $3 or $4 million advertising campaign over a 2-year period to really get cut through and traction, and because you're competing with Manuka. And a company like us, where we are now, we don't have that cash. So we're better off doing what we can afford to do, which is local, where we have the ability to, I suppose, influence our peers around us. And China, they scare the hell out of me, because I can't tell you how many of them have lied to us, promised us so many things, and you go and ramp up, you do all this product design, and then bang, they just disappear and you've wasted capital and what have you. So I'd rather focus on those environments where the the political action is okay, the trust indicators are good, their happiness factor, everything's good. So, and that is not China.
Awesome.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
Sure.
go for it.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting question and a very poignant answer from Jay. I think what we also need to focus on as well is that while there's a strategic focus within the business to target specific areas, have no illusions that if this becomes an attractive proposition to a large multinational, that's how you go global. So you need to find markets that you can sustain, markets that will pay really good return on the investment that you've made and the product that you're delivering, low effort from our perspective, and low integration requirements as well. But you need that profit factor back, and you need that brand awareness so that people want to buy it. When that starts seeping out, going into Europe becomes easy because you've got a multinational behind you. They've got all of the infrastructure, logistics, and planning there. You literally just clip into that and you're off. If you wanted to go back into China, there's mechanisms to do that as well, as Jay was talking about. Some of the counterfeiting that occurs within product manufacturing in China it's legendary, and that's not where you want to be without a safety net and some very, I would say, rigorous and trusted partnerships, which can help you avoid that. There was another startup not long ago that actually pulled its raise off Birchal, and that was just when all the trade sanctions kicked in, and that was a scooter manufacturer. But part of the problem they were suffering was exactly what Jay was talking about: dishonesty. I mean, they had warehouse issues, they had manufacturing issues. So it's a tough market to go there, but with the right partnerships and the right financial backing, then it makes it safe. But I don't think that anyone would turn down, an investment opportunity to take over the world if it was sanctioned and backed and you had the funds to do it. But you need to be smart about the money that we have, and that's corporate responsibility as well. We need to make the right decisions for the investors.
Awesome. Thanks. All righty. So we've got a couple of final questions. Some of them quite specific to hydrogen peroxide. So hopefully we might just really quickly touch on those, Shona. So what is the mean percentage of hydrogen peroxide in the honey?
There isn't a percentage. There is not a percentage of hydrogen peroxide in the honey. What happens? The bees collect the nectar, take it back to the hive, add an enzyme called glucose oxidase. Then when you use the honey, for example, if you put it on a wound, the moisture will be drawn out of the tissue and that enzyme will start working. And what we do is we get this production of hydrogen peroxide over time that it peaks and then comes down again. It's actually, yet again, another complicated thing about honey. So it's not like the old days when we put hydrogen peroxide on a wound and it burnt a hole in you. Because it's slow enzymic release, you get enough to kill the bugs, but not enough to damage the tissue. So there isn't a full number or a proper number. Sorry about that, Anna.
Awesome. No, that's perfect. Thank you. And just a quick one, is there any propolis research being conducted at the moment? And if so, any results to share or any promising results?
There is. Propolis is another substance. Yeah. It's a whole different kettle of fish. It's complicated substance like honey. It's not the same. It depends what the bees have collected it from. Honey shows a lot more promise, in my opinion, because it's ready to go and you can stick it on the wound, you can stick it somewhere and it will work. Whereas propolis, you'd have to extract and do all sorts of complicated things. So stick to the honey. It's easy pathway.
Thank you. And we've got one final question from Tim. Do you have access to suitable supplies and qualities of honey? We've touched on this quite a lot. Obviously, Jay's outlined all of the investment that they've made in their production capacity, in their manufacturing facility, and in inventory as well. Jay, is there anything you'd love to add to that before we wrap up?
No, not really. I think we have touched on most of that. And I think if I go into it, I'd only be rambling.
All good. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. If you think of any after this, do feel free to reach out to Jay and have a chat. And otherwise, thank you all for sticking to the end. I'm amazed and really happy that you've all hung around. So thank you so much. And do keep an eye out on your emails for contact from Jay, giving you all of the information about how to invest in the private round when it opens. It is opening next week. So do keep an eye on your emails. And thank you so much, everyone.
Bye all. Lovely to meet you.
Hopefully we've been able to shed some light on our opportunity. and hopefully we see you on next week when we open our offer.
Thanks, team. Bye.
Okay,
Bye,
thanks
everyone.
everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.